Good morning, everybody. I'm absolutely delighted as part of our guest musician program to invite back two of your favorite musicians. The last time they were here, I think back in June, well, the applause just went on forever, and I thought, well, it's high time that we brought them back. So I'm very pleased to introduce my good friends Victor and Ignacio Garcia.
What a wonderful way to start the morning. Good morning, everyone. My name is Dee Dee Kamhai, and I'll be leading today's service. Both Trudy Crippen and Reverend Matt Alspaugh will be presenting our message this morning. Our opening words are from Reverend Dr. Rebecca Savage. Today is the day. Today is our day. Gone are the days when we slumbered unaware of the blessings that we are. We follow the path of inherent worth. Gone are the days when we did not embrace that spirit, the spirit of life moving through us and within us. We follow the path of prophetic witness. Gone are the days when we allowed the urgency of others' expectations to dictate our lives, but now we follow the path of serenity. Gone are the days when we felt as if we were not enough. We follow the path of grace today. So today is our day. Today is our day. May we be bold in our faith, declaring that gone are those other days. We are Unitarians. We are the blessings we seek from the world and the beloved community we are building. And so today, I want to welcome you with, live from Fellowship Hall, it's our LCUUF Sunday service. Hooray! We continue to offer our service both in person and on Zoom each Sunday for those who are unable to attend in person. But we have a very nice crowd today. This is wonderful. And now a special welcome to our visitors. If you're visiting with us for the first time or have returned or reconnected after a long absence, please get the attention of Matt and tell us where you're from and your name, okay? And if you're on Zoom, use the Zoom raise hand feature, and we'll ask you to unmute. And if you're in your room, raise your hand.
Good morning. My name is Steve Taylor. My wife and I live in Riberas, just up the hill here. We lived here about 5 months.
Oh, wow.
Adele St. Pierre, and I've been away for 2 months, and I am so delighted to be back. Thank you.
Welcome.
I'll just,
Matt, back there. Matt, way back there.
Louise Walker, and I'm here visiting Sharon Thompson, Wilson, and Steve.
oh, okay, great, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Louise Walker, and I'm here visiting Sharon Thompson, Wilson, and Steve.
Oh, great, excellent. Okay, now over here.
Good morning. I'm Noris Binet and live in Ajijic. And I am with my husband, Tim Booby. Thank you for welcoming us.
Welcome. ¿Alguien más?
¿Alguien más? ¿Hay otras personas? Okay, let's switch now to Zoom. Is there anyone new with us on Zoom today?
Nothing today.
Okay, we're all here. Are there a lot of people? How many people are on Zoom today?
Almost 30.
Wow. And there's over 30 here, right? Over 30? Yeah, big. Okay, this is nice. So just a brief note, we offer a wide variety of services on various topics presented by our members, outside guests, and by our minister, Reverend Matt Alspaugh. We hope you will return to sample this variety of thought and belief. And so now it's time to light the chalice. This chalice shines a light on our shared past, signaling our intention to listen deeply, reflect wisely, and move boldly toward our highest ideals. Now let's light our chalice with these words that we sing together. We kindle this light in celebration for the life that we share. And our opening hymn today is Spirit of Life, and in Spanish, Fuente de Amor. And we're going to sing it in both languages, so please rise and join me in singing. Spirit of life, corazón, cántale tu congregación, solo sube en amar hasta morar la justicia de vida. Arráncame, libérame, fuente de amor, ven a mí, ven a mí. That was lovely. Each week, we take a time to remind ourselves that we belong to a community which cares for each other. We do this by sharing any significant joys or sorrows in our lives. So if you have a joy or sorrow to share today, you can type it into the chat now, and we'll read those aloud. So first, let's look at our joys, whatever you may be celebrating, whatever evokes a feeling of peace for yourselves or others. We'll start with the folks here in the room. Are there any joys that people would like to share?
Hi, Devorah Kelly. My joy is kind of twofold, but they're combined, which is my 10-and-a-half-year-old grandson, Owen, ran for his first time as a fifth grader in the state of New Hampshire cross-country championship, and he did really well. I saw a video. It's like, oh, my God, how did he get that big? And part of my joy is that this coming Saturday, there's a surprise party for his dad, my son, and neither one of them know I'm coming.
Jim.
This morning on my way to play tennis earlier, on the bike path were streams and streams of Mexican people with their children throwing all kinds of beautiful chalk dust at each other and just having a lifetime. I don't know what the celebration was for, but it just touched the heart to see this joy so early in the morning. I guess that was why the cohetes went off last night too, I suppose. Anyway, it just brought me great happiness.
It was at the Terra Nova school this morning.
Oh, it was?
Yeah.
Okay.
And they were streaming out of there with all their colors all over their bodies.
Yeah.
They were so happy.
Yeah, brought a lot of joy.
And I have a lot of joy today because I received from India that today is the celebration of Diwali. It's the light that illuminates the path of everyone. So when you light the light here, it was just like, wow, we are connected all the way back to India today.
We're connected. That's wonderful. Any other joys?
Back on the other
Let's keep them going.
Okay. My great joy is I've just come back from 3.5 weeks in the Northeast, and the chimes are going, and visiting family and friends. I'm totally exhausted, but I got to babysit my grandnieces and meet them for the first time, born in the pandemic, little Hazel and Willoughby of Vermont. And tomorrow, even though I have no power now, my great joy is I welcome my dear friend from, getting emotional, from my congregation in New York, and he and his wife are going to see this beautiful, beloved community. So I'm joyous, and I'm being...
Thank you, Pam. Any other joys? We're happy today. Here's Heidi.
I wasn't going to say anything, but I'm so gosh darn happy after about 2.5 years of not seeing my aunt, who has a home here, but unfortunately was very ill quite a while ago. And then through COVID, she hadn't been able to come. And I did have the opportunity to, it's not just 2.5 years, it's 3.5 years. So she was here, she's healthy, and she really wants to come back.
On this joyous occasion, anybody else?
From Zoom,
Okay.
from Zoom,
Well,
I
let's
have
wait.
some.
Let's just wait a minute. Wait until
Okay.
they're ringing
Yes.
the bells for our joys. Bing. Okay. Any joys to share on Zoom?
Yes, from Catherine Luria. I am delighted that Eric and I attended the wedding of my brother in Georgia last Saturday. It was very special.
Wonderful. Any other joys from out in Zoom land?
No.
Okay.
Yes.
Bells are going to stop ringing.
No.
Okay, let's voice.
I have a joy. Am I allowed to say it?
Okay, let's voice our sorrows, our concern. Whatever you or the world may be holding that is in need of our healing and caring thoughts. Again, let's start with the folks in the room. Are there any sorrows that people would like to share?
Concern for my brother who lives in Florida, about 3 miles away from the heart of that hurricane. 3 feet of water in his home. And he's, through bursts of tears and the help of a lot of family and friends from afar, he's slowly trying to recapture his home, along with neighbors just up and down his street and in the area. It's not in the news, but it's not over.
Any more sorrows here in the room?
I announced last week that Ernie Howard was very ill. He passed away this week. So your blessings for Rich, his husband, and rest in peace, Ernie.
I have a sorrow for the for the poor people in Afghanistan. May they fight to the death, but not the death, but may they fight and win this battle quickly. Okay, any sorrows to be shared on Zoom?
Not today.
Good. Okay, now, this candle, this is the care team candle, represents those sorrows that are too raw, too difficult for us to share aloud. So many of us have had losses, partners, children, grandchildren, pets, losses that remain present with us every day. So many of us have had burdens, anger, fear, frustration, all of those things that weigh heavy on our hearts. So let's light this candle for all those unspoken sorrows. And now, let's share a moment of silence to hold in our hearts both the sorrows and the joys that have been shared this morning.
So today, let's do something that might be considered unacceptable, idolatrous, even heretical by some of the groups that we'll talk about later today. Let's meditate. Let's just breathe in and out. In, out. A little bit of a visualization. We might bring to mind an open, clear blue sky. Our open and aware mind. Now, thoughts may appear in that mind, just like clouds drifting across our sky. Thought clouds come and go. That's okay. Now, occasionally we get so attached to a thought. Look at that cloud and imagine what the shapes are and how they're changing into all these things. And you even go inside that cloud and experience the foggy murkiness. But if we notice this, if we notice that we have been carried away by a thought cloud, we can draw back. We can see the blue sky behind it. And we can allow the cloud to dissipate, as they all do. I mean, it's between the clouds that the sunlight shines through. That's where our mind is most open, most curious, and most aware. But the clouds never fully go away. So if you get drawn towards one, don't worry. Just let go. Just return to that blue sky. No judgment. All okay. Just open to the sky. I'm more aware. And now let us return to this time and this place to be together again.
Good morning again. That was an old picture of mine. I don't know who took it. The LCUUF budget for next year has 10,000 pesos for guest musicians out of the goal of 1 million pesos. Let's talk about music for a second. Music has been my whole life. I've been very fortunate to have worked professionally in music since I was about 20. And I still do work in music, as many of you know. I know many of you were at the concerts yesterday and the day before with the orchestra. My passion for music is because I believe that music touches everybody on this planet in one way or another. It could be a Buddhist chant in Tibet. It could be rock and roll at a big stadium where Guns N' Roses are playing just like they did earlier this week. It could be here in a hihik, where we have very many talented musicians in all genres that touch us by their music. We can all feel how music permeates our body. We have that tingle down the spine when we recognize something and it brings a memory back. Music affects our soul. Just like any other art form, it is a creation. It is a creation of our spirit, of our body. And here at UU, it is a goal of mine to further integrate music into our services and everything to do with the fellowship. And that is why we have a program where we bring in guest musicians from the Lakeside area, and we have been doing this every month now for about 6 months, and we have return guest artists. And next year, I hope to expand on that, and we will have musicians from the Lake Chapala Orchestra. We will have musicians from across the whole spectrum of genres of music to perform for us, and for us to feel their sonic vibrations in our body and in our soul that contribute to the world in which we live in. Music is a universal language, and we are all part of that universal language. So as of today, our pledge thermometer is showing that we have received pledges for the 23-24 fiscal period totaling 411,400 pesos from 19 individuals or couples. This is a remarkable achievement in just 2 weeks. We're nearly halfway. Okay? We want to see that red mark going up and up consistently over the next few weeks, and it's up to us. Because although the music component is a small part of the budget, I believe it's a very, very worthwhile component that everybody appreciates. If you haven't yet pledged, please fill out a pledge form which is on the welcome table and put it in the offering basket, or send your pledge by email to treasurer@lakechapalauu.org as soon as possible. Thank you for your contributions.
And so I want to invite up Steve Taylor, who is with Food Bank Lakeside, to, actually I'm stealing your words. This was supposed to be you. But I want to note this, that in addition to our pledging and all that, each month we donate at least 5,000 pesos or more to an organization in our Lakeside community. And for this month, we've been supporting Food Bank Lakeside. And today we welcome Steve Taylor to say a few words about their work and about a new initiative. Steve, welcome.
First of all, thank you for your donations this month, and I'm sure at other times too. I even talked to somebody who said they give automatically every month for 12 months. It's good. It's very helpful. I wanted to share with you a story that is a true story. A few years ago, my wife was unemployed, and she helped start this organization of unemployed people in Austin, Texas. We had a holiday party at which, needless to say, it was a tough audience. This is a bunch of people who didn't have jobs, but it was a holiday party. We tried to make it worthwhile. We had a comedian who spoke. She was probably in her 60s. She was dressed like a nun, but she wore a miniskirt. And she got up and she kind of went through her routine. But the story that stuck with me was that she asked the audience, how many of you woke up this morning in your own bed, got out of bed, walked down a hallway, went to the kitchen, opened the refrigerator, and there was food inside of it. Maybe not a lot, but some food. And everybody, this is a tough audience, as you can imagine, everybody raised their hand because it's America to a certain great extent. And she said, congratulations, you're living better than most of the world. And it changed the attitudes of everybody immediately. We have always raised money for feeding the hungry because it's kind of basic. You can't be an artist, you can't be a good student, you can't do much of anything if you're hungry. So that is what we're doing now. Food Bank has been around since 2000, stemming from the COVID outbreak. But what's happening now, because we're coming out of COVID, thankfully, people are finding other ways to spend their money. Thankfully, for most of us, we get to go to restaurants, we get to go, watch musical groups, and we get to go to theater, and this is all good. But we're actually going to run out of money. A couple months ago, we were looking at the financials. We're going to run out of money at the end of the year. There are 700 households that depend on us, and there's probably 3 times as many who actually would qualify for help. We give basic food out to these people, grandmothers, children, the disabled, you name it. And we want to keep doing that into next year. And so we're having the Million Peso Challenge between now and New Year's Eve. I've got a table over there I can talk to you more about afterwards. But regardless, I want to say I really appreciate all of your support because I know I'm talking to the congregation here. I'm talking to the believers. Thank you very much.
So this is a time in our service when we ask that you remember that we share our gifts here and through pledges and donations. The basket is being passed. Of course, you know that this week we are pledging 5,000 pesos or more to the organization Food Bank Lakeside. Thank you very much, Steve, for giving us more information about it, about Food Bank. I have a very good friend who goes to the Despensa every Thursday to fill all of the orders, and there are 700 families that get all these goods, which is just wonderful, and it's basic food. There's rice, beans, tortillas, some fruit, some vegetables, some things like that. And I'm very proud. I was the one that told him that I'm the one who donates monthly. And so here I am standing tall and being proud. So the offering has been given and the bells are ringing. And so now I'm going to turn the mic over to Trudy, who is online on Zoom, who will be presenting today, Should Christians Celebrate Dia de los Muertos? Maybe we'll wait until the bells finish reading for Trudy to start.
Good morning. Should Christians celebrate Dia de Muertos? That's a weird question, isn't it? It's so strange, I was afraid that no one would come to listen today. And the Catholic Church across from us is certainly going to celebrate. I think I am like most of you. Well, the beauty, the climate, and the cost of living were appealing reasons to move here. None of those would have been enough for me to choose my home. No, it wasn't the cost of living or the climate or even the beauty. It was the culture that made Mexico so appealing. And I really love that our fellowship has celebrated Dia de Muertos every year of our existence. Why wouldn't we celebrate this beautiful honoring of the dead? making altars, attending parades, visiting the cemeteries where our friends now lie. And why did I ask the question, should Christians celebrate Dia de Muertos? This began about a year ago. I was talking with a young friend, a mother, wife, university graduate, and Ajijic native. She said, we never have an altar for Dia de Muertos because my brother is a Christian, and Christians don't believe in celebrating that. Excuse me, I have to get rid of this message. So I asked, don't all Mexicans celebrate the Day of the Dead? No, she answered, not Christians. Now, I know that to most of us, Catholics are Christians, but not to everyone. There are two different religions in many countries. So for the purposes of today's talk, please accept that Catholics and Christians are two different groups. Please also understand that when I say Catholic, I mean Roman Catholic. Almost all of us can remember the 1960 US presidential election, where one of the concerns facing much of the US was whether we should have a Catholic president. Wouldn't he be the tool of the Pope? Well, we survived that election and are now being led by our second ever Roman Catholic president, Joe Biden. Out of the 46 US presidents, the US has had 4 Unitarian presidents, 2 Southern Baptists and 2 Quakers. 3 of our presidents dodged the religion question. Thomas Jefferson, Abraham Lincoln, and Barack Obama basically refused to commit. The Unitarians were John Adams, John Quincy Adams, Millard Fillmore, and William Howard Taft. The Quakers were Herbert Hoover and Richard Nixon, and I'm sure there's a joke in there somewhere. Jimmy Carter broke the unspoken bias against Southern Baptists, quickly followed by Bill Clinton. 46 presidents, 14 of whom were not vanilla Protestants. The Masons, or Freemasons, a pretty silly group of men who keep secrets and have special handshakes, have historically banned Catholics, while the Catholics were sure that the Masons were devil worshippers. Maybe Trump was a Mason. The Ku Klux Klan was strongly anti-Catholic. The modern narrative of the Klan tends to emphasize its activity in the Deep South during the Civil Rights Movement of the 1960s. But Colorado, believe it or not, had the second largest chapter of the Klan in the United States in the 1920s, second only to its birthplace in Indiana. I know we agree that the Klan is and was a racist organization. It is also historically anti-Catholic and anti-Semitic. To prepare for today's talk, I visited the UUA website and watched a video about cultural appropriation. The general feeling at the UUA is that we should not go around celebrating holidays that aren't ours. So I thought quite a bit about what this fellowship is. We are from many different home countries, and a majority of us are permanent residents in Mexico. Many of us are Mexican citizens. Would I be offended if a Turkish migrant in the United States chose to celebrate Thanksgiving? No, I don't feel any conflict about this. It would make me happy. Did I feel uncomfortable attending a black tie celebration of the US Independence Day while in Australia? Yes, I did. Cultural appropriation is tricky, but I am confident that we have earned the right to celebrate Dia de Muertos in Mexico. Els and Adolf's ashes are in Mexico. Maureen's ashes are in Mexico. And many of my non-UU friends are also spread here. There are so many ashes in the lake that it is illegal to spread ashes there. But here's a hint. You hire a boat and you go out. I visit the grave of a bridge player friend in Ahihic and our member, Monica Devine, in Chapala. I am confident in my right to celebrate, to commemorate this Mexican holiday. For the Mexican perspective, we need to go back in history. About 500 years ago, Hernan Cortez invaded, visited, dropped in, said hi to Mexico, and brought Catholicism with him. I'm going to ask you to ignore the Crusades, the Inquisition, and the other unpleasant Catholic activities. Yes, they happened, but who among us hasn't wanted to burn a neighbor at the stake? The Roman Catholic Church has a long history of accommodating cultural differences in order to make converts. The priests in Cortez's party did not immediately make the Aztecs memorize the rosary or attend catechism classes. Instead, based on 1,500 years of practice, starting with pagan Romans, the priests looked for ways to integrate Spanish culture with what they found here. The priests saw sacrifices. Oh, that was easy. Everyone in the path of the Roman Empire had liked the occasional sacrifice. Blood, cool. The priests saw rituals. That too was easy. Who doesn't like a good ritual? The priests saw multiple gods. Fantastic. The Roman Empire had perfected the three-part God of the Trinity and had managed to sell it to countless groups of pagans. Much of the Catholicism followed by many Mexicans has strong influences from pre-Hispanic traditions. For example, about half of Mexico's Catholic population claims that they have medium to high levels of engagement with indigenous beliefs and traditions. Included in these are beliefs in reincarnation, witchcraft, sorcery, magic, communication with spirits, and the evil eye. Let me repeat this because I think it's very interesting. About half of Mexico's Catholic population claim that they have medium to high levels of engagement with indigenous beliefs and traditions. Included in these are beliefs in reincarnation, witchcraft, sorcery, magic, communication with spirits, and the evil eye. So this was a relative cakewalk for the priests. Move a date a little here or there. Don't argue with the Olmecs, who clearly knew more about the movement of the planets than the Romans. Just find room for compromise. Look for shared values to unite, not differences to disrupt the party. Despite the immensely destructive effects of the church in Mexico, Catholicism and indigenous traditions found a way to merge, notably Dia de Muertos, which, while originating from pre-Hispanic traditions surrounding reincarnation and customs of venerating death, often has rosaries as well as images of La Virgen de Guadalupe and La Santa Muerte. Will the culture we love, culture that is interwoven with Catholicism and indigenous traditions, continue? According to data from Mexico's 2020 census, though an overwhelming majority of Mexicans still identify as Catholic, declines are accelerating. It took 50 years from 1950 to 2000 for the proportion of Catholics in Mexico to drop from 98% to 88%. Now, only 2 decades later, that percentage has slipped another 10 points to 77.7%. Take a look at this slide. There are 2 clear trends. First, Catholicism is on a steady decline, while no belief is on a significant increase. The growth of what I'm going to call Christians is increasing more in Mexico than this chart might show. In Mexico, the Christian, Protestant, evangelical percentage increased from 7.5% in 2010 to 11.2% last year. That is a significant number, and you can see that this is true not only in Mexico, but throughout Latin America. That's a big percentage jump. I welcome you to read pages and pages from Christianity Today. You can read and read that Christians believe Christians should not, under any circumstances, celebrate Dia de Muertos. Christians, by the definition of non-Catholic, whether in the US, Mexico, or the rest of Latin America, are strongly discouraged from celebrating Dia de Muertos. So I decided to get some current perspective from our colleague, Francisco Lagunas, who heads up the Mexico City Unitarians. And here's what Francisco had to say. 80 to 85% of Latino American Protestants are evangelicals, and the word evangelicos became a synonym for Protestants in common use. Francisco explains that the Catholic Church has created their own charismatic adapted services. Most of the historical Protestant denominations have substantially surrendered their traditional belief practices to adopt Pentecostalized ones. But they don't like the term Pentecostals. So they call themselves Cristianos or Christians. So to summarize, rigid mainstream Protestant and Roman Catholic services don't appeal to large numbers of Mexicans. Many Roman Catholic churches have tried to make themselves more folksy, more approachable. And Pentecostals, evangelicals, and mainstream Protestants have found a way to greatly increase their numbers by appealing to a larger segment of Mexico's population. The term Christian has been adopted to mean non-Catholic Christians. Andrew Chesnew, professor of Latin American history, said, Pentecostalism has very successfully absorbed into Latin American culture. The Pentecostal preachers tend to sound more like their congregants. They speak to their flocks in the same way that people in Latin America tend to speak to each other. They also tend to look like their congregants. So in Guatemala, many preachers are Mayan, and in Brazil, they're Afro-Brazilian. By contrast, in the Catholic Church, most priests are part of the elite. They are either white or mestizo, and many are actually from Europe. So how did Pentecostalism begin in Latin America? According to Chestnut, it was imported from the United States. In the early 20th century, Pentecostal missionaries began arriving in South America, and they did well immediately. Unlike earlier American missionaries, Pentecostals were also quick to train Latin American pastors and nationalize their denominations. For example, the Assemblies of God in Brazil, the country's largest Pentecostal denomination, was fully under Brazilian control by 1930. Just 2 decades after the first American evangelicals arrived. Today, things are reversed. Pentecostalism is now overwhelmingly anchored in Latin America, not the United States. In Brazil, for example, the Assemblies of God has 10 to 12 million members, while the U.S. Assemblies of God has 2 to 3 million. So now the Brazilian church is the big brother, and the United States is seen as mission territory. Many Latin American Christians are now sending out missionaries to the United States. They've especially attracted Latin American immigrants living in the U.S. And I know this is something both Democrats and Republicans are focusing on. This is likely to impact voting patterns that used to be accepted as dependable. Let me bring this closer to our own lives. Many members of this fellowship used to volunteer at a Chapala orphanage, Love in Action. An evangelical group from the Midwest came down, took over Love in Action, took over their board, removed the Roman Catholic volunteers, the LGBTQ volunteers, and the UU volunteers. This missionary group decided that the children in Love in Action and their boys group, Hope House, were better served by learning about evangelical Protestantism and separated these children from their local culture, Roman Catholicism. An evangelical or Christian minister now heads up Love in Action. So this brings us to the critical part of every service. How should this affect the way we lead our lives and the life of our fellowship? To me, the lessons of the Christians, the evangelicals, the Pentecostals, the Presbyterians, and the Baptists should make us think about how, when, and whether we should consider inserting our values into Mexico. I'm not suggesting that we should not live our values or be proud of them. I think there is a reasonable percentage of people for whom Unitarianism is the answer they are looking for, and we need to make it readily available. But should we promote it? Francisco, our colleague in Mexico City, says, I think there are many different niches for the potential growth of Unitarianism in Mexico. University students and middle-class liberal spiritual seekers could easily find a home in a Unitarian church slightly adapted from the UUA models. And this is certainly an interesting thought for us. Like the message in the movie Coco, I believe that the dead stay alive as long as there is someone to remember them. I have no conflict between my personal belief that there is no life after death and this other belief that people and animals are still alive as long as they are remembered. I look forward to Bob's service next Sunday and our shared memories. To me, this is one of the most special times of the Mexican calendar. I am proud that this fellowship has celebrated Dia de Muertos every year since we began, and here is a picture of us in 2006. Thank you.
Earlier this year, I traveled to Lake Atitlan, Guatemala, for an immersion course in Spanish. I had arranged to stay in a hotel near the school, and this just as the pandemic was subsiding, 2 discotheques got going, one on each side of my hotel. And they were celebrating, really pumping it out until 5 in the morning. I don't mind disco music at all, but not at night till 5 in the morning. After 3 days of this, a friend of mine intervened on my behalf, and I ended up in a homestay situation with a family associated with the school. Now, this family, like many involved in the tourist economy, had suffered mightily during the pandemic. It was clear that they did what they could. They hustled. The husband was kind of responsible for the homestay situation. The wife was the only one that had a regular job. The young adult daughter had a beauty shop on the front porch of the house, and the teenage son made bread and sold it. The youngest daughter was still in school, and one evening a week, the wife and a number of other women got together on the front lawn, and they wove baskets to sell in the market. What made life tolerable for this family was their involvement in an evangelical church, one of many in Guatemala. The kids attended youth programming several nights a week at this church. The youngest daughter sang on Sundays. One evening, the wife was sat down next to me at the dinner table, and she was working on a list in her notebook. And I asked in my limited, and yes, still limited Spanish, ¿Qué es tu lista? ¿Qué haces? Yes, they use tú and not usted in Guatemala, generally unlike Mexico. She explained that this was a list of neighbors that might need government food assistance. One of her roles at the church was to reach out to these people who might be otherwise too embarrassed or ashamed to do it themselves, and to connect them with what food assistance was available. So even though this particular family was living a relatively difficult life, they knew they had the support of their church, and through the church they could also help others. I think this is a big part of the success of the evangelicals in Guatemala. In a country that was once overwhelmingly Catholic, there are slightly, yes, just a titch more evangelicals than Catholics in Guatemala. So much so that Guatemala has been described as the most heavily evangelical nation in Latin America. Why have these evangelicals been successful? To me, it appears that these church communities operate as centers of support and care for their people. The theology may not be all that important, but in a country ravaged by recent civil war, still with high levels of violence and corruption, and dealing with a pandemic, people find their way to religious communities that help get them through. My suspicion, just from my observations, is that's what these evangelical Christians have been able to do exceedingly well. We might learn from them. And our closing hymn is Our World is One World. Again, I'm stealing your words, Dee Dee. Now, I know we sang this last week, so it should be familiar. So please rise and join me in singing.
Cover
Thank you. Let us close with words from the Christian and Jewish tradition from the book of Numbers, chapter 6, verses 24 to 26 in a modern translation. May the Eternal bless you and protect you. May the Eternal smile upon you and favor you. May the Eternal befriend you and prosper you. Amen, and blessed be.
So let us extinguish our chalice with these words, which we will read together. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we keep in our hearts and share with all the world.
As our postlude, performed by Victor and Ignacio Garcia, just before they do, I would like to take this opportunity to thank them both for coming to share their music and their love of music with all of us. Thank you very much. Muchas gracias.